Good morning, everyone. Microphone check. Screen check. Looks like everything is working correctly here. Good, good, good. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone is doing well and is all rested up and ready to rock and roll. As always, before we jump on the left side of the screen there, make sure to read through the Live Trader Morning Prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that's inside there. If you need to read through that with a little bit more time, you can get a hold of that at the top of the Live Trader login screen, or just read it here every morning. But one way or another, make sure to read through that. That way you're on the same page as everybody else. Along with that, make sure to swing over to SSFTG/brief and grab your morning DP levels. Get those all taken care of so you've got all of the major turning points for today. As per the usual, if you want to find out more about what we're doing every day and how we're trading the markets, you can always gain access to the Day Trading Academy right here on the main page of SSFTG. You've got all that taken care of there for you. So that should get everything rocking and rolling. And then before we jump in, I didn't see this yesterday. I apologize. I'm still getting used to the way that YouTube's layout works. But there were 2 new members, so I appreciate you guys. I apologize it took me so long to call it out on YouTube, but welcome. Glad to have you. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Anyway, looking across the board here, we've got the NASDAQ starting off. I want to see if I can figure out. I know there's a way to do like an alerts window or whatever, but either way. We'll figure it out. Morning. Welcome, welcome. Looking at the NASDAQ, we've got, kind of a megaphone, kind of not. It's sort of gross because it's not really rallying up to the highs of the megaphone. It's missed it so far. So the fact that it's missed the top here, I mean, that's definitely going to cause some issues. I love this bullish spike, but man, I really want to see the bulls coming in a little bit sooner here because that could definitely cause some problems if they don't. You know, flags usually you don't want them lasting this long. You want them going a little bit quicker, like a pennant more so than anything else. If they're able to get it going, a nice measured move does put it right at the top of the megaphone, so it's definitely still in play. But I would really like to see this hit sooner than later, that's for sure. Looking good so far. I mean, from the seller's perspective, from earlier, they held the L5 off the top. They broke a little bit lower, finally broke down with some aggression. And then we got those L1 sellers that tried and just got smashed right through, right up to an L2, dove back down to a new low, and then started reversing back up. So you can kind of see, I mean, it just didn't do what a lot of traders wanted it to do here, and that's why it reversed a little bit more aggressively. We're still holding the larger L5. I mean, it's still there, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess. I have no sound. Is the sound working for you guys? Can you guys hear me? Shows my mic working. I think it's all right. Yeah, mic is. Okay. Make sure that it's not muted, I guess. Sometimes I know if you... There are shortcut commands, like keyboard shortcut commands on YouTube, and I think M is mute, so if you were typing something, you might have accidentally muted it. Of course, I'm telling you this audibly, which you can't hear me, so, you know, it's a win on my part. Either way. Seems like audio's fine, so I'm sure it just needs a refresh. NASDAQ so far, I mean, again, we're holding the L5 to the downside. These lower highs are making me a bit nervous. Kind of like a 3 press with divergence across, but I really want that to go up just a little further. Looking on the S&P, beautiful bounce off of the lows and creating the wedge bottom after breaking out of a wedge bottom. Total reversal off of the base, too. Sellers tried driving the market down really aggressively and just flatlined at the lows. Couldn't get it going, and sellers tried rolling lower again, failed, and now they're pumping back up again. Sorry, guy. Oh no, you're good, no problem. I would rather you tell me just in case something is wrong, you know. Got a nice reversal off of that, and it looks fairly equidistant to the move down, at least close to it. We've got the initial move up. I could see it going a little bit further to equal it out. But after that, that's going to be the kind of deciding factor. Is this an equalization move up? If that's the case, we're probably going to see it double up, and then 3960s wouldn't be too much of a shock. But if it starts failing and having some difficulties up here, then, I mean, realistically, rolling off the top of the wedge and back down towards settlement, trying to crack through the lows, all that support down there, there's a lot of stuff that's just begging to come back lower. If we look at the overall volume profile on the move down, what? What? Why isn't it? Am I missing something? Why isn't it showing the volume that I told it to show me? Okay. Let me go further forward, I guess. There we go. That was weird. So we've got a pretty obvious amount of accumulation going on down here. And that created a large point of interest, which is floating right around 39.10. That's the POC, at least on that move lower. Once the market started bottoming out, though, if we include the rest of the volume, then that gives us a little bit of a clue in terms of what they're trying to do. Remember, 39.10 was where the average was before. Oh, geez, that's a lovely one. Holy crap. Oh, man, what a beauty. 3,900 is the average now on the POC side of things. Jeez. This is an accumulation type volume. It looks like a mess just because there's so much of it, but that is accumulation. We see volume increasing while the market's going down. They're trying to get a rotation back up. This could just be a retest of those earlier traders at 39.10, and realistically seeing that pennant forming underneath that volume node and then creating a huge volume point at 3,900 before a reversal up. I think that gives us a pretty big clue. So buyers are trying to get this move going higher, but if they fail, it's a wide open floor until 38.75 or so. We'll see. Today could be interesting on the S&P. Over on gold, still inside the wedge, not really doing anything. Just dead slow inside of this. The overall move, I guess we've got kind of sort of a wedge top coming across the top, but actually probably better like that. Yeah, I mean, none of them look that great, but it's better than nothing, I guess. We're still stuck inside the wedge, and realistically, as long as we're inside here, I mean, we're not expected to do a whole lot. Generally, the wedge POC ends up being right around where the wedge would complete if you drew it all the way. So the POC is probably going to be at around 28. It's still a little bit higher at 32, not too far off, but you could easily see it backfilling this zone in the 26s, 27s, and then finding a base of support or resistance once it breaks there. So I don't think we're done going range bound yet on gold, unfortunately. Over on crude oil, fantastic drive to the downside. That setup yesterday worked out beautifully, all the way back down 58.56, and it actually went twice as far, creating a big move lower, all the way down towards almost 57. Now, once they made it down to those lows, big rejection all the way back up, huge volume node at the base, and a lot of interest coming in around those 57. Well, let's see. Let's put the volume on this. A lot of the volume at 58.90, but they did get a good chunk of volume coming in at 57.75 and a little bit more in the 57.54s. And if we widen that out a little bit further to the end of the day yesterday, they built up just a bit more. But we're still not seeing any accumulation type volume. Accumulation volume would be bigger. Well, we're not seeing that yet. So we still have some time. We're getting back to the top of the wedge, the earlier point of interest that sellers sold off of from before. Now it's retesting at the top of the wedge at the same time. I mean, that's just about perfect. Then over on the euro, creating a nice bounce off of the lows of the wedge. And so far, I mean, it needs a bit more proof. But we've got a nice little pennant forming down here. We'll see if they can keep it going or not. I would love another pushback down to the 18,300s. That would be incredible. Bitcoin rallying higher off the head and shoulders, challenging the falling resistance and attempting to break above it. Only just getting above it. So It's got a little bit further to go. Would like to see more continuation up towards the 60,000s, preferably 60,250, which would be the full completion of the Head and Shoulders. Still got plenty of room. And then over on Ethereum, Ethereum's running into the top of the following resistance, and unfortunately here, that's also the top of a 3-press wedge. So we've got kind of this multi-point coming together, which is causing some issues. So this zone that we're running into at the moment on Ethereum, it makes it tough. Buyers are going to have a hard time wanting to buy way up here, knowing that there's resistance smack in front of them. It's going to be a lot more likely seeing a higher low dip, maybe back to settlement, 1675, 1680s. It'd be a lot more optimal there. Doesn't mean it will. It could just pump right through here, but that's why we're seeing it stall at least. Switch gears over here. Take a look at what's going on for the news for today. All right. So from the news perspective, we've got this, I mean, 8:30 news is really the only big thing that we had so far this morning. Those are core durable goods orders. Came out a lot worse than expected. They were forecasting a positive 0.6, came out negative 0.9. Big old miss there. Aside from that, there wasn't really much else going on aside from what you see at the bottom. Tesla, which is rising in the pre-market, Tesla announced this morning that they are in full acceptance of Bitcoin to buy a Tesla now. So that's pretty big. That's a big deal. I mean, everybody knows good old Elon is definitely pro crypto anyway, but I think it would have been funnier to see him do it on Doge. Could you imagine the pump on Doge that would cause? Yikes. Anyway, the only news that we had so far this morning is at 8:30. Going into the morning session, 9:45, we've got minor news of the manufacturing PMI for March. Not really a whole lot else until 10 o'clock, where Fed Chair Powell is testifying. 10:30, we've got the crude oil inventories. Forecast negative 0.272 million. If we look at yesterday's API, that'll generally give us a good idea of what to expect for today. And the API report yesterday came out at a build of 2.927. So at a build of 2.927, and then we take that in comparison to today, right? Today is expected to come out right here at a negative 0.2. Well, it's very close to zero already, and it's not going to take a whole lot to get that to bump into a build again. The last time they were expecting a build, it came out at like a 20-something million. So, I mean, who knows? You never can be sure with crude oil, but the anticipation is going to be a build into crude oil, which would be theoretically bearish. We'll see what happens. That's about it, though, as far as the rest of the news for the day. It all kind of dries up after that. So 10:30 inventories and 10 o'clock news. That's, well, not really news, just testifying from Powell. That's it. Looking at the nearer picture that we've got going on here. Starting off on the daily. We did get that continuation bounce to the upside. And again, we have such a fantastic bounce off the L3 down here. And so many attempts from the sellers. The first time that we actually get a break below a previous candle was gobbled up like crazy. And then the first time we actually have a bear bar that triggers was also gobbled up like crazy. I mean, the buyers just swept into this thing. So we do have a lot of continuation to the upside. Realistically, this is only the first attempt down. And this is a really nice bear bar trying to get a second sell. So, that's why I'm saying if it does dip below this bear bar, yesterday's low, if it dips below that bear bar, we might see this slide quite a bit further down towards the 12,850s, 12,800s. And the NASDAQ, if this thing starts getting legs, we could see it slide all the way back down to the lower portion of the L2 down to 16 or 12,625 rather. Let's try that again. So it could get really interesting here, especially with a lower high, everything setting up. Oh man, we're on a tipping point today, that's for sure. Now, looking at the 60-minute chart, we can feel that tipping point even more. There's a ridiculous amount of resistance coming in across the highs, and there is a ridiculous amount of support coming in across the lows. We're stuck in a range right now, but if one side or the other breaks or gives up, it'll be pretty obvious what's going to happen next. Give me 1 second. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. So as far as the NASDAQ is concerned on the 60-minute, it's just super range-bound. There's not a whole lot going on. Give me 1 second here. Got a couple folks having issues logging in. Let me take care of them quick. Sorry about that. All right. So market, for the most part, basically sideways. There's not a ton going on. I mean, they're trying to get something going, obviously, from the bigger picture, but we're still in that balance point. If we look at it from a volume perspective, from the lows up to that initial drive, the initial move to the upside at least, we see dispersion, right? We see profit taking. A lot of the sellers, who were likely what the majority of this volume was, were short. They got out. And with that failure move all the way back up, we just see more distribution all the way across. Initially, it looked like short-term accumulation on the move up, but then right there, it seems like they kind of gave up. And we're waiting to see a bit more of that accumulation, which hasn't happened yet until we bring this forward a little bit into yesterday's price action. If we look at yesterday's price action, in terms of the volume, now we've got a clearer picture. We have an obvious point of accumulation. This is only the second one. The third one's kind of weird so far, and we might get a little bit more of that as we drag volume forward. But at least at the end of yesterday, we can see that there could potentially be some unfinished business that's waiting to get taken care of inside there. So far, though, that's kind of the zone that they're creating. And if we drag this forward further to today, this kind of completes the story, but it still looks like there's a bit of unfinished business to be done in here. It looks real thin. Could use a bit of Rogaine inside there. It's got some issues. So knowing that, we might spend some time hanging around this 13,050, realistically, down to settlement. What a perfect spot for the market to have to fill in some volume from an accumulation standpoint. This is only the secondary leg to the upside, so if it does go higher, that would be the next accumulation point above this, and that could potentially span all the way up to 13,300. So buyers have a shot to try to take this back up, but again, we're on that tipping point. We really need to see where this wants to tip, so we have a decision. That's not even close to the one that I wanted. Let's try this again. There we go. And then going over to the next on the 15-minute perspective. 15-minute, jeez, oh Pete, obviously there's a big old line to the upside here. Lots and lots and lots of strength higher. But the big thing that we've got going on now is, well, if this was going to be a wedge or a pennant, a lot of those buyers will have wanted that to break a lot sooner, probably here, which is what a lot of this engulfing movement was probably trying to get done. When it came back, a lot of those traders got out at break even. And if they didn't get out at break even, here, well, then they obviously did here, and the market is starting to fall apart. So the buyers are losing their grip big time. The very obvious big brick bar bottom that could be waiting at around 13,060 could also be looking for an entry defense around 13,040, which is a bit more likely considering settlement is right around 30. We do have a lot of support down here, but it wouldn't be a surprise to see the market want to flush a little bit lower, and then we start dealing with the zone of 13,000. So you can kind of see there's tons of support all the way down. It's not going to be an easy road for sellers if they're going to try to take this further. One obvious thing before I get rid of the 15-minute actually is this wedge-ish channel going on. Keep an eye on that. From the 5-minute perspective, why is this? What the heck is happening? Wait, the volume is set to logarithmic? Let's try this again. There we go. Like something's not quite right here. Ugh, man, that's gross. All the way down. Well, we'll see what they want to do. From the faster perspective, looking at what's going on here, we really haven't done a whole lot, honestly. We kind of started the day off with the Asian session. They really didn't even accomplish a full deviation up. Yeah, it went a half deviation up a couple times, rotated around, and then finally broke out higher. But by the time it broke out higher, it did it in the European session. So there wasn't a whole lot of time for the Asian session to get much done before this gargantuan European session showed up. And this, because it is so large, is likely going to create a bracket area where it's going to have a hard time breaking out of it. That means that L1, L2 deviations above the highs and below the lows are going to be big zones of interest. So those are going to be the ones that I want to keep my eyes on in that sense. Let me set this to an L1. Actually, I need... Crap, I never remember. Do I need 0 or 100? There we go. So right about there, 167.50. Okay. I don't know why I made that so much harder on myself. I could have just looked at it, 159, 160. Whatever. $159, a little bit further up. So that's going to be the first area of interest, and then same goes for the bottom side. Although, I mean, it might have a little bit of a harder time getting down there, but that would be way better if it moves down down here. Man alive, that would be really nice. Calm down, stochastics. From a cycle standpoint, though, there's not really much going on. I mean, we started off today from the lows, and it just recently tried breaking out to the highs, which is not doing so well. Possibility for like an L4, L5 pullback. A lot of those L4 or L5 pullbacks will be the major reversal points for traders, but this also isn't a major low. The major low happened yesterday, so it's kind of tough. Just looking at it from today, though, they're dipping back. Likely L4 and L5 is going to be the major zone of support. We've got the open in 5 minutes right around the corner. Let's get this thing moving. Hey, Andre, how's it going? I did cover Bitcoin already, but that's fine because I really didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. I'm still waiting for it to continue back up. We did get that nice dip. We've got the head and shoulders formation now. As far as the head and shoulders formation, it's still gunning to the upside. There is a pretty obvious concern. The previous high that it's trying to break out of. We've got falling resistance in the way. I mean, if it's going to pull back, it's going to pull back around this area. But with this kind of breakout higher, sheesh. I mean, what they reverse off of? An L5 off the bottom? And now we're seeing it scream all the way back up. An L5 off to an L1. That shows a lot of aggression. So it could just be a bunch of L1s all the way up. And that basically just means, if you don't have the Academy at least, just a bunch of small pullbacks. Not expecting a bigger one until a little bit later. Usually these go on for a little while if there's strength. So maybe a spike in channel. It's too far up to want to do anything up here, but if it pulls back, it definitely gets interesting. Hey, Diego, how's it going? Andre, Pavel, Justin, Manuel. I think and everyone else that I didn't mention. Glad to have you. Glad to see you. For all the new members, like I said, I totally spaced out yesterday, and I'm still getting used to YouTube. But if you're joining in, I I apologize for not calling it out yesterday. But welcome to all of the new members on the YouTube front. I'm getting there. I feel like for day 3 on a new platform, it's not going too bad. Yikes, this 5-minute on the NASDAQ is really starting to hammer down. We've got 10 seconds until 9:28. 9:28 is a big point of interest when there's a lot of volume. Be careful. That's the final drop for adjustments on those at the open trades. Still haven't quite made it down to that L4 area. But man, they are digging into a wedge low here really, really nicely. I'm going to keep an eye on the L4 specifically here. I haven't quite gotten it yet. Look at this wedge. Sheesh. All right. It's got a little bit further to go. One minute until the open. Your price is still lagging. Yeah, the best on the latency side of things that I've been able to get it down to is about, I mean, depending on how close you are in the world, at least. Nearer in like the east side of the US, latencies can get as low as around a second. But if you're starting to push out towards California, because I am on the East Coast, or if you start going out of the country, I've seen latencies that can dip into the 3 or 4 second range. I know Zoom had a bit better diversification in terms of lag, but the nice thing is, and one thing that we've been working on a lot more of, is talking about these areas of interest ahead of time. So it's a give and take relation. I know at least this way I'm not going to lose any recordings, but at the same time there is a slight delay aspect too. You're in Australia, yeah. That will have an impact too. From the here, I'll put the clock on the screen. You'll be able to see and compare it to yours. You can see exactly how much of a delay there is. We are at the stock exchange open, dipping into the L4 and starting to get a little bit of an overshot on the lows. The market's pushing through L4 pretty aggressively, and that usually means they're either going to break through the bottom or find a really quick snap response off L5. I'm going to look for a quick bounce off L5 here on this dip. And see if they can get a responsive move back to the upside again. At least back up towards like the 60s, 60 halves or so. But preferably a little bit further if they're able to. Nice initial pop, but if this is going to be an L5 bounce, it should be able to get up to the 60s. Retesting this area again. Oh, they chucked that low. Did you see that quick little trap that they did there? How many people do you think had their stop just underneath that low? Just to get whipped out and see it pop 20 ticks. Oh, man. $20 seconds. Are you Germany? A little bit further. They can do better than that. That bear bar off the top, though. I'd like to see the sellers get trapped in and see this reversal back up and break above the 60s. Nice bull bar to try to get it done. Strong bear bar again, no thanks. That's not the follow-through that I wanted. I wanted that bull bar to punch and follow through. In that type of scenario, I mean, it might go, but it's going to do it without me. I took almost no risk on that, so flirting with a 2-to-1, it's just not worth. Quick little dip down again. Dutch next to Germany. Yep. Somewhere around there. I don't know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Nice little bounce off that area, but if they're going to break through the L5, then realistically it would make sense for them to break the bottom. And if they're going to break the bottom, they're probably going to get that overshot. And that's where things get really interesting. 13,003. 13,000's huge number. Speaking of which. Four seconds in Denmark? Really? So wait. Netherlands, he's floating a 20-second delay. In Denmark, you're floating 4. Okay, well, that's actually really good info. So that would tell me then that you're probably either connecting maybe through a VPN that is slowing down the connection. That's usually the first guess. The second guess would be that you have a VPN maybe built into your router, or that's usually not the case, or there's a firewall slowing it down. 3 seconds in Sweden. Yeah, so there's definitely something up. When I see 4 seconds in Denmark, 3 seconds in Sweden, and then you've got 20, and it's not like you're connecting from the Antarctic or anything. I would check some firewalls and stuff. I appreciate the you guys putting that in too. That's good to know. Well, it was good to drop that one when it failed to go. It might have even been a good idea to go short. I'm just not a big fan of reversing positions too aggressively like that. That always makes me really nervous. Reversing positions, I've got to have one heck of a reason to reverse. But if I see a reason why shorts had come in, well, I don't want to be long anymore. So it was good that we dodged it, but I was really hoping for a nice L5 bounce there. See if we can get the breakdown. The zone of interest is going to be 13,003. See if we can get the overshot. S&P is attempting to break out of the highs on the of this range that they've got going on. What a mess. Man, I mean, if I had to make a choice, I would rather be a buyer off the lows than a seller off the highs. It makes more sense to see a continuation in my mind. Right, this monster of a trap at the lows, traps off the lows all over the place. To me, I would expect another leg higher, so I don't want to short the top of this range. It just doesn't make any sense. Five seconds in Denmark. Okay. Gold's still stuck in a wedge. Crude oil's back to the highs, I guess, kind of, sort of. NASDAQ's getting a little bit of a dip down. Ooh, big flush to the downside. This is starting to get into avalanche wedge territory. Fantastic move down. Wow. Look at this thing, just pile driver to the downside. 5 seconds in Perth. 12 seconds in Chicago? You're like my neighbor. What do you mean? 12 seconds in Chicago seems weird. But that could just be a slower connection. It could just be a firewall. It could be a VPN. I mean, a VPN 12-second delay from Chicago to... I mean, that makes sense. Getting closer on the NASDAQ. 13,000s. That's the zone of interest to see if they can dive down there. Bitcoin attempted to break through the highs, tapped 57,100 and backed straight off of the top. They're getting close. Just a little bit more down into the 13,000s. Nice little flush point down the lows. I was only able to grab one. Nice push into the 13,000s again. Initial bounce point area of interest would be around like the 975s, maybe a little bit lower, like 850s. Sellers are trying to shove this 13,000 area. I mean, it's no surprise that 13K is going to be a bit of a mess. Nice overflush on the lows. We'll likely see it overcorrect back up. I'll reduce the other two that were around break even from before, so that trade's kind of a scratch. And then I'll hold this last one to see if we can get a nice run back up. They juke the bottom, but I'll give it one more shot through these 13,000s. See if that little low move was nothing more than a trap. Nice. Okay. Okay, well. They're trying. Got to see more continuation back to the upside. If that low side was a trap, I want to see this go higher, and I want to see it go relatively aggressively, not much of a pullback. All right, I'm going to jump ship. Pulled back a little too far. I already know the earlier one was a scratch, so I've got to make sure that I keep that in mind as well. Got to deal with the lack of follow-through. Let's see. Bottom line, YouTube is inferior for what you're doing. From a scalper's perspective, yeah. It's certainly not optimal. There's definitely some issues with the 2 or 3 second delay. If we were playing, like, video games or something, then it wouldn't really matter a whole lot. But from a trading standpoint, when you're looking at the faster setups, it's definitely, that becomes a little bit of a problem. So I'm not sure what the solution is yet. Bulls holding on to a higher low and trying to get it to rotate back up again. Look at the 5 minute to the downside, though. I mean, that's a no-joke move lower. Don't mind my dog snoring in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear her. 13,050. That is the volume node for today on the NASDAQ. Market's getting hyper congested down here. Big old dive to the downside on the NASDAQ. So again, you can see this 13,000 area. I mean, it's a pretty big tipping point, because if the buyers can hold here, then we have a higher low and a failed completion of the megaphone. So that would be a really good sign of strength. But this is also an inside swing that hasn't really even tested and is now failing lower too. Ugh. What a mess. Yeah, and the S&P is just doing the opposite. They're breaking out through the highs. Go figure, right? Gold has rising wedge support, which is still kind of coming into play, but kind of weak. Crude oil's at the top of the wedge. Although, to be honest, trading crude oil right now feels like playing with a flamethrower. Well, more than a flamethrower. Awesome, NASDAQ. Glad you took your time. Jeez. Beautiful bounce. Right area, right mentality, just too early. I was looking for a rejection like they did off the top. Quick. The euro on the 15-minute is plotting a pretty nice bull bar. I mean, the probability's garbage. But realistically, buyers will buy above this looking for a 2-to-1 move back to the upside because the risk is relatively narrow. And we have a nice area of support down here. So, I mean, with that in mind, there will definitely be buyers on the euro looking for a continuation up. But don't expect the probability to be great. I mean, you're looking at like maybe 40 if you're lucky. Might even be better to go for something more than 2-to-1 to compensate. Ethereum and Bitcoin are moving into short-term problem territory. Those bear bars that they just plotted on the top are a problem. That is no bueno. That's a nasty bear bar on the high and a nasty bear bar on the high. Yikes. Bitcoin and Ethereum, potential for an area that could pull back a little bit further. A two-legged correction phase back up would put resistance right around 13,040, and that would also be retesting back around the high volume node, but the high volume node's at 50. I'd rather just wait for that. Change the background on this one. While we're waiting for everything else, we do also have the S&P. Which is trying to get something going to the upside. It's totally disregarding what the Nasdaq's doing. Nasdaq's coming under pressure. The S&P's trying to ramp it back to the upside. Bears coming in now with more continuation lower. Ooh. Now we're getting the breakdown attempt through the lows. As soon as it hit the bottom, it immediately snapped back up. But watch this area for a potential bear side continuation lower. Scalpers will be looking for another bear bar down to be selling into for a continuation. Nice little inside correction as well. It's forcing sellers to sell pretty low into the move, but realistically, the buyers are potentially getting pushed back on pretty aggressively here. Weak bull bar back up. Nice pop through the lows. Further continuation. Beautiful. Scalpers have that push back to the downside again. As far as further continuation, I didn't really want to float too large a size, but further downside objectives would be on a wedge bottom. That's why I was kind of getting out there. But if it does want to go a little bit further, we could angle that wedge a little bit differently and use this kind of funky inside swing here. And that gives you targets, well, right around now. I guess that doesn't help a whole lot, but... S&P is backing off pretty aggressively. That is a monster of a bear bar, though. Yikes. Lordy. I don't... Oh, man. That bear bar is gnarly. Where's the first 5 volume here? Oh, lovely. Not a very good first 5, that's for sure. And of course, we're sitting directly on top of it. So this is forcing sellers to have to short through the first 5-minute volume cluster, which with this kind of bear bar is definitely possible. But man, I would rather sell on a retrace or still buy on the lows. That bear bar on the top would scare the crap out of me, though, if I were long. Chances are buyers who were trying to buy for a breakout move above the highs would have had entries at 20. I doubt I'm going to get filled at 20, but 1975 will have a shot for sellers to push back against that move. It's those buyers basically realizing that they got duped and getting out of break even. So more sell side continuation back to the downside. We are in some heavy aggressive territory now. Sellers are breaking down nicely, and we have a full reversal through the lows that just held in L1. So we've got more proof. Now we've got assumptions, at least, that sellers will try to keep this going. And we can look back at the wider picture to kind of gauge where the market may want to go. On the 15-minute perspective, although it's still creating the candle, at the moment we've got downside candle gapping. It's actually hitting its objective right now at 62.50, so that doesn't help. That actually makes it worse. Just kidding, I take that back. Let's not look at the 15. No, that's definitely a big clue. We're going to have to pay attention to that. The 15 minutes hitting some candle gap objectives already, which means that it's likely overextended. I mean, as if that wasn't obvious enough. Starting to narrow in on the half deviation move now off of the European session. Full deviation on Euro session would be down at 12,901. I gotta say though, if this thing physically taps the low of this wedge, that's going to be really hard to stay away from a scalper's perspective, because it would take such an overextended move that it would be really difficult for the buyers to not get something to come back. I'm going to cancel the S&P as well, because I missed it. It just never came back. And that 15-minute on the that 15-minute on the S&P looks nasty. Got a possibility of this wedge still forming. This is an incredibly aggressive wedge that's trying to get a breakout. Starting to get a bit of divergences on the lows, although not much. Possibly suggesting that although the lows probably aren't in, they're at least maybe getting a bit closer. Bitcoin, beautiful flush back down to 56,400s before bouncing $300 off of the low, right back up again. Jeez. Kind of curious if I play. Pardon the music if it plays. All right, I just started my music. Can you guys hear that? I got to figure out how YouTube works. Because if you guys can hear that, you're probably not going to want to hear it. Not many people like my kind of music. No? Okay, cool. Bears getting a bit more continuation to the downside. Now, if we have another test through the lows, it's likely that we're going to see buyers, but realistically, the bears are in. The bears mean business. So from the sell perspective, we've got an L1 retrace. Sellers will be looking for another L1 retrace, and a two-legged move back into that from a value side of things would be amazing. 0.26%, 0.25, 0.26. You got to be kidding me. So sellers will be looking for 12,980 for a continuation to the downside. See if sellers can get a bit more continuation to the downside. Although I really would like to see them get back up into those 80 quarters. That's a really heavy bear bar. Come on, NASDAQ. Give me that correction back up. 78. 78, 75 is going to be the zone of interest now. Up to 83.75. Huh. No! They missed it by just a little bit. That's a really nice bear bar, too. Oh, I'm not going to chase it, but there will be sellers that sell that. That's a little frustrating, but okay. So they missed me by just a couple ticks. So now I'm going to have to wait until they actually get a little bit more of a pop and a bit more confirmation. As far as the volume move to the downside, we've got... I mean, geez. That was profit taking until right about there. And then all of a sudden things changed a little bit. Now we've got accumulation. Sellers are still trying to get the move down. Now, beforehand, the sellers were able to get proof on that previous bear bar. So, ooh, those are some... Let me narrow this in a little bit here. So, on that previous little bear bar that formed there at 969.75, sellers will be looking for a retest to sell into that again. I'm not really too pumped about selling into a giant bull engulfing candle, though. That's not accomplishing a whole lot. Yikes. How this candle closes is going to tell a lot. Sellers are still looking for continuation down, but a nice bear bar will definitely help. Nice bear bar will definitely help. Sellers are going to have to try to push through the lows, which will cause some issues. But if they're able to, then it should be able to follow through to the bottom. If they're unable to, then it'll reverse up off of this. We do have 10 seconds until Powell. Nice breakdown point. There we go. Nice little dip down into those lows for the breakout move into 10. Oof, jeez. I was only able to grab one, so unfortunately I don't have any runs or anything like that, but it's a nice follow-through move. Yeah, I got commercials between JH and NQ. Yeah, that was my fault. I have the, there's a, like I said, I'm still getting used to YouTube. There's a button at the top, and it was this $ thing, and I didn't know what it was, so I clicked it. It inserts an ad. That was my fault. I'm a rookie. I can't help it. I didn't realize I had that much control. Whoo, lordy. Wow, bulls are coming back in. So pay attention to this earlier area around 70. If we plot another really strong bear bar, sellers may try to take this right back down again. Nice bear bar to try to take it lower. This is either going to be a continuation leg or a failure. A continuation leg should be able to see this drive back down through the 50s and potentially back down through the lows. They're getting hung up in the 55s. Tried to jump out on the bid. All right. I'm just going to stop out on that one. It didn't follow through the way that I wanted it to. I need a better follow through than that. And again, what I really wanted to see here were the bears pummel this back to the downside. They might have another shot here. Holy crap. Oh, bad bear bar, though. It's engulfing, but I want to see this follow up with another one for proof. Follow through with another nice bear bar, and then reselling the point of interest that the earlier sellers would have taken would be there. But if this fails, then we've got a shot that the bulls are going to take this right back up again. Oof. Man, I got a terrible fill on that. When I hit the bid jumped way up at 68.50. I hit the bid twice. You saw where the first one was. That was back in like the 64s. Then the other one didn't get it until 68. I jumped out of that one. That was just a terrible fill. Even trying to buy the bid, it just moved too quick. Oh, that bear bar. That bear bar. Can they follow through with another one? If we get another bear bar back down again, then we've got some conviction. We need proof. That's all they're missing. There we go. Very nice bear bar. See if the sellers can come back up and get a push off of this area. I tried hitting the ask. I didn't get filled. Sellers looking for an early entry defense to try to push the market back down again. Give me a nice follow through. We got some stops under there. Ooh, yikes, I'm out. Oh, man, that was terrible. No thanks. Nope. It might go, but that was the second time, and it's juking it again. If it's going to go, it's going to do it without me. They go bull engulfing in the last few ticks of the candle. That's just a hard pass. Jeez. What are you doing, Piper? Go lay on your bed. If we start triggering above that last week bear bar, bulls may try to spark this move to the upside. Remember, this is a heavy overextension off of a large zone of support. Really nice spark to the upside. I'm going to keep it on the smaller size here, but I'd like this for a pop higher to try to rally above the 75s, potentially even drive into the 85s. It's got to pop above these highs. A doji. Doesn't prove much of anything. Micro double bottom on that previous doji low. And we know the sellers are heavily stuck. And that closed back into a bull bar again? Give me that pop. Oh, I tried hitting the ask. I didn't get it. Let me come in a little bit further. Really, NASDAQ? They're messing with the break-even point, and they've juked me twice on trying to hit the ask. Another nice bull bar. Alright, I'll take that. Fine. You vindictive SOB? Jeez. Where do you see the swing long area? So the swing long area is off of, first off, if we zoom out to the larger daily, the big thing that we have going on right now on the daily perspective is coming into that previous high that was creating the gap, right? So the swing gap is here. This is narrowing in the gap, but as long as it's in here, that's like a hot pocket. That is a monster zone of interest for buyers to try to push it back up again. So as long as it's inside here, we're in the zone of interest. It's not so much inside there now. It's backing out of it a little bit, but. And as long as that gap stays open, it's favorable to the upside. If they close the gap with too much pressure, then a lot of those buyers will get out of the way. Really, NASDAQ? Man, it's like as soon as I get out. Monster of a bear pushback to the downside. Starting to get close to a head and shoulders, but I don't like it when the head and shoulders is down sloped like that. If anything, they just kind of confirm the channel. If you take the same line and put it on the top. That was a to the tick confirmation. Because that was drawn from here to here and here. So, I mean, the only thing that I can see that really makes sense would be a full deviation reversal of that pop higher. And that is, oh man. That's at 34.75. Yikes. Let me make sure I've got those in the right place. The amount of ticks on the NASDAQ is ridiculous. All right. There. So 34.75 would be the full deviation move to the downside. And, I mean, this is one of those things, right? I mean, like, close enough? You know? I mean, that's a toughie. I would love to see it go down one more time, but sheesh. Bears trying to get this to slide back down again. Big zone of interest is going to be around 46.50 if buyers are going to support it. That would be the break-even support test. Entry defense. Or not. That's fine too. Look at that 5-minute. I mean, if you want clues as to what's going on, what happened? Couple things happened here. Break-evens on the sell side so far have not been filled. If they got short underneath that bear bar, they got slapped straight in the face. And they haven't been given a chance to get out of break-even. And buyers are coming in below the bull bar, stopping these traders from getting out of break-even. That's going to create a bit of passion to the upside if this starts kicking off. We get bull engulfing. I mean, you can easily see. Put yourself in the shoes of the sell side, being empathetic to both sides, right? You can feel the pressure that those shorts are under. It's like, no, come on. It was just 3 ticks from my break even. Like, please don't. Uh-oh. Bulls are starting to creep it back up. The top of that 5-minute bar becomes a really big point of interest. Happens to be right around here. Now, I am not a fan of buying breakouts whatsoever. I don't like breakouts. I'm not a breakout trader. But what I would like to see is if we can break out here, to see a nice little pullback that would give like an inside L1 for aggression, and then see buyers continue it up from there. Watch that break-even point. The low of that previous bear bar was 53.50. Right there. That's the break-even point for stuck shorts. I am very curious to see what their response is. See if you can get a dip down into 53.75 at first. Volatility is very high. We've got 15 minutes until 10:30 inventories for crude. And remember, this zone goes all the way down to the earlier break-even point, so you've got down to 46.75, this whole zone. Another bull bar here, and buyers will potentially just start buying it. Especially if it's stuck shorts. They're thinking, all right, no, it's gotta go. Nice snap. I want to see a continuation move to the upside, assuming that those stuck shorts are going to be on the back burner thinking, crap, it's time to go. Upside objective is going to be around 81. Ooh, they might get that chance. Ugh. I didn't get the fill down there. Give me the pop 53.75. Oh, man. This volatility is through the friggin' roof right now. They missed my entry by a tick. Alright. Alright, so now we've got more than one. We've got some flexibility. Alright, getting a little bit slip-slidey down here. Looking for a bullish continuation phase back to the upside of, at least on average, for a scalper's objective first off. Be around 58.50, but potentially further. Whoo, lordy. All right, so there's obviously something going on. Traders can choose to exit and just take the lump. There's nothing wrong with that. Whenever I've got a big washout spike like this, I like giving it a second to kind of settle down and allow me some time to recalibrate. But not everybody's going to have that leniency. It's almost always better to cut the loss. "99 times out of 100, unless you can manage the loser." S&P finally following through to the downside, although the Nasdaq's got one heck of a head start. Starting to come into DP support. I'm not interested in being the first one to the party on anything right now. See if we can get a halfway decent pop back to the upside again, and longs will be given a chance to get out. Shorts will also be looking for an opportunity to push the market back down. If we're looking at it from the wider perspective, it's that big reversal off the top. But again, keep in mind, it's a range-bound day. That's why I'm willing to give it the risk. They did hold the L1 finally. So the next objective would be another L1, which is right around break even. So we're still in a manageable location. Not enough support to become a buyer by any means. The only thing that they might end up showing would be a wedge bottom. And that's kind of where we're at right now, but if it's going to push back up, it's going to come back up to 52 anyway, regardless of whether or not I add down here. It's not going to do anything but increase my risk. Sellers will be attempting to get a bit more continuation to the downside. Made a quick new high and then faded back down again. Oh, hey, it worked. You got a Pikachu. Awesome. I got to see it in action. Welcome. Didn't realize I had a Pikachu emotion there, or emoticon, but, you know, hey. If you're going to get one, you might as well get the best one, right? Nice jump to the upside. Big rifle to the upside. So I'm going to use this to mitigate a little bit of the risk and reduce just a bit. Did I do that? Yeah, when you join as a member, it'll pop up on the screen. That's what I wanted. I just didn't realize how it would do it. You got a Pikachu. I'm going to reduce a little bit more here. While the market's a little bit further up, and this will make it significantly easier to manage the position as well. Yeah, I think anytime someone becomes a member, it pops up on the screen. If you, I've never seen one before, but it's where you like a super chat. That's what it's called, where that'll pop up on the screen. I don't know if you subscribe to the channel if it will or not, but there's a few things like triggers that it'll kind of pop it up. Nice continuation, more back to the upside again. Giant rifle higher. This big move up, I'm going to look to reduce off of this and just jump ship on the remainder. Oof, give me one more push back to the upside. I really want to potentially try to take this back to the downside, but if they give me another reason to enter back down again here in the 916s, then I'll take it. Again, I'm reducing my risk, but I'm also trying to get my average down a little bit further. Right now, my average is terrible. So how do you know where your exit is to make it so that your loss... If you're trying to figure out where your exit is to keep your loss 0, first off, make it... just do it in even numbers, right? So enter in 2s or enter in even numbers. And the way that you can essentially do it is average out where your initial entry was, right? So my initial entry was here and here, these two. Right, so between those two, first in, first out, just again eyeballing, you don't have to do anything crazy, would be down to here. That was the size of the loss of the first two. So then what you would do is simply take that from where your current average is and just draw it back up. You've got to get up to here and then you'd be break even. So it's still a losing position. But the reason why I'm exiting where I am is because I don't believe it's going to make it up that far. So... I also want a Pikachu. Yeah, I know, right? Join as a member. Come on now. No, I'm just kidding. You're already a VIP member. You don't have to join as a member underneath the YouTube channel by any means. You're more than welcome to. If you want a Pikachu. We've got a good continuation back to the upside again, but again... I don't like the scenario for the longs. I think the longs got dumped on, and we're seeing a slide back below 13,000. The big zone of interest now, if it's going to pull back, it's got to go a little bit further to 12,900, and that's the only reason I want to stay long, is that last ditch off of that bull bar on the daily. Right there. That's the original entry point for buyers. Giant bear bar back down again. Yikes. If this is going to reverse, we're likely very early to the party. Usually, if it's going to reverse off of these zones, you'll see something like... this, where you've got a couple higher lows, and then it goes. We're still way over here. So, Another push back up. A strong bear bar here would potentially cause some issues for those break-evens because it's to the tick. It is a bear bar, but it hasn't triggered. All right, and it triggers. I'm out. I'll see if I can get a better entry a little bit lower down. But they're showing indications of reasons why somebody who isn't short would want to go short. That means that I have no business being long anymore. I tried to manage it for a bounce back up, but I have to eat the loss on it. Very glad in the decision to keep the sizing small. That could have been a heck of a lot worse. We still have a lower high, and we're still kind of inside this wedge. They're trying to figure out which way they want to go. We don't have proof one way or the other. Sellers are definitely gaining ground, though. Ooh, ooh, okay. Do they get that big bull bar back up? That'd be the first high or low. Why'd they have to close it on 35? Really? If we get another lower high and another strong bear bar to the downside, it's very likely that sellers will try to take it down from there. And then from there, it'll be looking to short down to the lows where buyers will try to take back over again. Strong bear bar back below 30. Oof. Oh no, what is that candle? Well, they gave it all back. 10:30. We got 2 minutes until 10:30. Crude oil inventories right around the corner. So again, the anticipation for inventories is to be bearish. Whether or not that's actually the case, well, we'll see. Still got a couple seconds, and NASDAQ is still potentially interesting. Bull bar back up immediately leads into a bear bar, but so far no follow through. We have 30 seconds left until inventories. Ooh, terrible follow through for sellers. All right, Crude, what you got? $10 seconds. Numbers are anticipated to be bearish. So seeing this pop to the upside ahead of the numbers makes me a little bit suspicious that we're going to get a drop. Yep. Not much, though. $41 would be the zone of interest. But honestly, if they're going to dip, I'd rather see the news flush it down to 24. See if we can get a little bit of a washout play on crude. 59.24. Initial objective is going to be around 59.36-ish. NASDAQ had a nice slide down, but then failed again. I want to see what they do on this candle. A strong bear bar will get sellers in. Inventories came out as a build, as expected. So, nice reversal play back to the upside again for buyers here on the NASDAQ. Just need a bit more from crude oil. NASDAQ scalpers will be waiting back at around the 45s or so. Swings will be waiting back around the 25s, but honestly, I'm not so sure it's going to get back down there again. That was a really nice trap on the lows. Crude oil's getting close. Too heavy of a bear bar on the top. I'm not going to be interested in buying the first pullback, though. Those big, heavy bear bars on the highs are the ones that reverse trends. Crude oil's still creeping in. Still not quite far enough. Nice L1 for sellers trying to push back down again. It's also a two-legged correction back up. So if the sellers are going to take it lower, we should see a lower high. And if the buyers start displaying this defense here around the 38.50s, then buyers are reloading for another leg up. Or at least that's more likely the case. Very nice bull bar again. Buyers will be looking for a continuation move back to the upside. Might be able to get a lower fill down here too. Ooh, big bear bar back down again. $34.75 is the zone of support. Although it is the NASDAQ. You know how the NASDAQ plays. It wouldn't be a surprise to see them trap 24 quarter too. $34.75 support coming in here again. Crude oil still hasn't pulled back far enough. That zone begins at 24. First objective is going to be back up to 52. If it wants to go a little bit further, then we've got 61. And then if it really wants to climb, we might be able to get... It makes more sense to go for 58.75. But then we've got the larger 74.50. First objective swept out. Oof, that was a lot of resistance at this L1. Come on, NASDAQ, push back through it. There you go. Just a little further. There's a lot of resistance coming in here. I'm going to see if I can jump out on that next one there and just ride this last one up. Let us trail. They still haven't broken above that last bull bar's high. And something tells me I'm not going to get crude oil either. Man, frustrating. All right, I'm going to cancel crude. I just didn't get it. Not for lack of trying. See if the bulls can keep this going or if the bears are going to sweep it back down again. a doji. Wow. All right, bulls, what you got? All right, stop locking in more. I can't believe they put in a doji. All right. Not quite at the wedge top yet. Sorry, pipe. Really? Oh, you vindictive pecker. Unbelievable. Well, there you go. Fine. Well, that wasn't very nice at all. To the tick. In like a millisecond. Well, nice secondary trail, although it was a bit vindictive on that last little portion there. All right, we are going on 10:40, so feel free to get those final questions in. We'll start wrapping up, going into training time, all that fun stuff. And here we sit and wait. Crude oil, man. Ugh. And here we sit. Sellers coming back down again after grabbing a really fast new high. Would you feel comfortable letting that long trade run till the end of the day? Oof. Until the end of the day? I'm not so sure about the end of the day. The one concern that I have is that this bounce ends up being a false bounce and we end up pummeling all the way back down. And the low just keeps getting absolutely annihilated. Really strong bear day. Because remember, we're on a big tipping point. If the bears start breaking down through this L2 support, through this buy support at around 894, then there's not really much to hold it until 750. So, I mean, if you're okay with that kind of risk, then sure. But if, however, this gains more confirmation and starts going back up to the highs and starts creeping into the bull territory again, in the time of day is a big important factor too. It's going to be a lot harder for them to reverse back up to a new high of day if it's 3 p.m., right? So if it's at, around the middle point and it still has a few hours left, then it has the potential of going into a bull engulfing candle. So by no means is it game over for the bulls yet. This is the dip buy territory. But if it doesn't start turning up within the next couple hours, they're probably going to start jumping ship. So yes, but with a lot of caveats. I think is the answer for that one. All right. Well, all things considered, I feel for day 3, we learned a couple more things. First off, the delay is still there. It's not as bad as it was, but it's still a 2 or 3 second delay. So it's a trade-off now. The trade-off is the ability of knowing. That's what I really have to work through, is figuring out whether the delay is something that I can work around, which realistically isn't that hard to work around. It's just taking trades a little bit more ahead of time, like we were, like marking the areas as scalp zones, that kind of thing. I've got some pondering to do. I really like the format of YouTube, which is why I don't necessarily want to jump straight back into Zoom again, because the format of YouTube, from my end, for me, is way easier. I hit go live and it's done. Like the scheduling and everything is done for everything is, so it's a really nice solution for me personally. So from that perspective, I have a little bit of a harder time wanting to go away from it, but I'm still listening to the feedback, and I know there's some that is good, some that's bad. I'm still listening, so I know the feedback. I know. Try not to beat me up too much if you don't like it. Feel free to send me compliments though if you like it. That's always fine. Give me 1 second here. I'm gonna do what? Yeah. Give me 1 second, and I will. I got to take care of something, and then we'll go into the final last bit of training time, and we'll wrap it up. All right, I'm back. More continuation further to the upside. Bulls continuing to try to break above these the highs of this wedge here. Let's see. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. So for the most part, kind of a choppy day, all things considered, at least on my end. But all in all, not too bad. Got chopped up a little bit on the slide down, but managed it pretty well. And on the bounce back, basically made some of that back. I'm ending the day in the negative on my end, though. Not too bad, though. Just another day of the week. So fingers crossed as we go into tomorrow, we start pushing into some more interesting price movement going into the end of the week. But that'll do it. So hopefully you had a great day of trading today, and that will cover it all. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, jhb@ssftg.com. Like normal tomorrow, it should just be a matter of clicking the link on the main page of SSFTG and it'll bring you right in. But I'll still be posting the links and all of that stuff like normal, just to kind of cover all the bases. And then don't forget, for you members, we have a webinar this weekend going over strategy development. We're going to be working on scalping strategies. I've got a few things that I want to go over. So if you're looking for something this weekend to do and you're bored at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, remember what time zone you're in. We've got that going on this weekend. But otherwise, that'll do it. Enjoy, rest up, and we will see you all tomorrow morning, all right? Talk to y'all later. Thanks.